Ten miles north of Preston in Lancashire sits a town called Garstang. It technically has two bypasses, the M6 and the A6. But if the M6 gets closed, the A6 is not fit for purpose. Let's discuss it. One trucker's eye. We start our video in the centre of Garstang. Garstang is an ancient market town. It sits north of Preston and south of Lancaster. It's famous for being the world's first ever fair trade town. Not only that, but it also got a mention in Peter Kay's Phoenix Nights.
Well, it's not many, I can tell you that. And what have you called us? What have you called the finest cabaret lounge this side of Garstang?
Funny farm.
The funny farm, Jerry.
And you may find yourself in the funny farm if you decide to go on a pub crawl around Garstang's pubs. You don't seem to be able to walk more than 30 seconds without passing another one.
More drink!
Hooray! I'm sorry, the bar's closed.
Hooray!
But did you know that Garstang once had the tallest wind turbine in the UK? As our video pans to the left, you may see the turbine on the top left hand side. The wind turbine stands at 126 metres tall and it belongs to the Junction cheese factory. Installation took place back in 2010 and it only took 48 hours to erect. Junction cheese is now run by third generation brothers Nick and Richard Kenyon. They're carrying on in the tradition laid down by their grandfather and father, producing Lancashire's finest cheeses. Researching famous people who came from Garstang, I was shocked to find an entry for George Benson.
Never give up all the good things. Remember what makes you happy.
As it turned out, it wasn't that George Benson after all. It was George Herdman Benson, a football player who had played for Blackburn Rovers, Queen's Park Rangers, Port Vale and Accrington Stanley.
When I grow up, I want to be good enough to play for Accrington Stanley. Accrington Stanley? Who are they? Exactly.
But primarily, we're here to talk about the roads. Now you may think with its proximity to the M6 that Garstang is really easy to get onto the motorway. But it isn't. If you would like to go north on the M6, you've got to travel up the A6 from Garstang for 6 miles before you get to the roundabout which takes you on at Junction 33. If you would like to travel on the M6 southbound, then you need to travel 8 miles south on the A6 and then slightly across on the M55, which will bring you on at Junction 32 of the M6. This section of the A6 that runs from the M55 right up to Junction 33 of the M6 is around 14 miles long. The M6 is also around 14 miles long as they virtually run parallel. But if the M6 gets closed for any reason whatsoever, that's when the problems start. The M6 carriageway between Junction 32 and Junction 33 is almost as straight as a die. As I stated earlier, the carriageway runs for almost 14 miles, with not a lot to see on this stretch of the motorway. It is actually in fact Britain's third longest junction. So if you're not concentrating when you pass Junction 32 northbound or Junction 33 southbound, you'll have a long detour to get back to where you wanted to be. Despite the length of this junction, there is one salvation, and that comes in the form of Lancaster services. The motorway services itself is just a mere 2 miles from Junction 33. That means if you're coming southbound, you will still have a good 11 to 12 miles before you reach Junction 22, and heading northbound you'll still have the same before you reach the services. For some people, this junction is a long, monotonous slog. Tiredness can be a major factor in why a lot of accidents happen, but it certainly isn't the only factor. But this stretch of this motorway seems to have far more accidents than a lot of other stretches of motorway, and this stretch of motorway seems to suffer from major closures far more than a lot of other motorway junctions. Running through on the screen at the moment, you'll see a bunch of news stories. These all have different dates, and these are dates and stories of when the carriageway of the M6 has been closed between Junction 32 and Junction 33. Ever so sadly, in the latest incident on this stretch of the M6, one of our fellow truck drivers has lost his life. As we know, drivers do not deserve to go to work in their truck and not return home. Our thoughts and condolences are with the driver's family. Thankfully though, a lot of the social media posts I saw in the aftermath of this accident seemed to be genuinely considerate as to why the motorway they were travelling on had been closed. Sometimes our own journeys and delays pale into insignificance. Accidents will continue to happen and road closures will of course need to be put in place. Road closures are also put in place for roadworks too. No matter what the reasons are for having to close this section of motorway, any drivers heading southbound towards Junction 33 seem to end up in the most ridiculous of lengthy delays. Take this particular Saturday in September 2022 as an example. National Highways were forced to issue an apology to motorists after closing the M6 from Junction 33 due to bridge works. That day, a friend of mine delivered to a store in Morecambe, and what would have taken him normally 1 hour to do the journey, it took him 6 hours to get from Junction 34 to Junction 33. Not being a driver who stays out in his truck, he ended up sleeping in a lay-by on the A6 with no bedding, no food and no water. His journey from Morecambe to his unintended destination of just south of Garstang eventually took him 7.5 hours. National Highways even went as far as posting some of the comments they received. They did not make for good reading. But just what is it about Junction 33 of the M6 that causes so much chaos in the event of a closure? I think I may have an explanation that I'd like to offer up to you. Looking at the free-flowing slip roads at Junction 33, it is clear that the junction is quite capable of handling free-flowing traffic. But as you can see here from the M6 South Exit slip road, 2 lanes merge into one in preparation for the arrival of the northbound slip road, which is here. However, in the event of a full closure, what they normally do is bottleneck the main carriageway down from 3 lanes into 1 for preparation for coming off the slip road. As you can see here, the slip road quickly develops 2 lanes. In the event of a full closure, there must be an easy way for National Highways traffic officers to make sure that traffic comes off the motorway from 3 lanes into 2. But what happens now is that the main carriageway is bottlenecked into 1 lane, it then branches out into 2 lanes on the slip road, only to go around the right hand bend and then have to merge back into 1 lane again. However, this for me is not the biggest of the problems. It's actually this roundabout right here. All of that traffic that has been on the motorway between junctions 34 and 33 now have to give way to all of the traffic coming southbound on the A6, and you can bet your bottom dollar that a lot of the people have tried to avoid junctions 34 to 33 by using this section of the A6. This makes it nigh on impossible for the traffic to get off the M6. As you can see in the video, I am now heading across the roundabout and the van will have to give way to me. Obviously, in the event of a closure, the A6 will be a lot more busier than what it is today, but so too will that M6 slip road, and none of them can get out. But just like Doc Emmett Brown in the Back to the Future movie said, please excuse the crudity of my drawing.
Let me show you my plan for sending you home. Please excuse the crudity of this model. I didn't have time to build it to scale or to paint it. It's good. Oh, thank you, thank you.
I was clearly never destined to be a graphic designer, but I do know about roads. The A6 southbound already has 2 lanes as you approach the roundabout. The left lane goes left onto the M6 and the right lane goes straight on and down the A6 southbound. As you can see here, the M6 exit would also get its own dedicated lane southbound onto the A6. And it'd all be done with just a simple bit of white road paint. This way, traffic would be able to merge as they meet the A6 southbound. This means that the M6 traffic would get to merge in turn. Obviously, you would still have 3 lanes from the M6 and 1 lane from the A6, all trying to merge into that 1 lane on the A6. It's not the ideal solution, and ultimately, money does need to be spent on widening that section of the A6 southbound. I guess, at least I've came up with an idea, unlike National Highways who seem to do nothing about this junction. Let me know in the comments what you think should be done here. Have you been stuck in one of these horrendous delays coming off at junction 33? Quite incredibly, I have just hit 1250 subscribers, and I want to thank each and every one of you. If you haven't subscribed, then please consider doing so. If you did enjoy this video, then please give it a like, and I will see you next time. One trucker's eye!